This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, our weekend show is all about the two of us. Look, I'm already limbering up. I'm physically stretching. Like, this is a physical competition, isn't it? We are here to win. We are each nominating what we think is the biggest story of the week, the most remarkable business story, a sleeper story, one that's flying under the radar a little bit, our favourite story as well, and we need a judge to pick a winner. And every week, without fail, well, occasionally he fails, on his judging, but our Fear and Greed colleague, Adam Lang. Adam, good morning.
Good morning, Michael. Good morning, Sean.
Morning, Adam. Morning.
Adam, 15 seconds or less. What are you looking for today? What are your criteria as we work our way through these categories?
We would like to see topicality, timeliness, economic impact, subjective bias, that's my subjective bias, of course, and a touch of melodrama.
Yes, we would like to see those, but suddenly you just drop in a random extra category at various kind of times.
Can I just highlight the need for timeliness, Michael? The last few weekends, I've been... You carry on, Michael. You carry on. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, judicious editing. Maybe there's another criteria I could use.
Well, let's do this then, shall we? Enough of this kind of waffle on from Adam and Sean. Let's get into it. Let's go with the biggest story. And you know what?
You go first, Michael. Go on.
I'm going to go first.
I tentatively agree to you going first, Michael.
Well, I'm glad I'm going first, Sean, because if I wasn't, Adam, I can give you a gold-plated guarantee that Sean would be doing this story instead, because it is the biggest story of the week, guaranteed, and it's about one of Sean's favourite topics, but I am doing it. It is part of the economy, specifically interest rates. And the fact, that's right, I'm doing economics, and the fact that it is looking increasingly likely that we may now be seeing an interest rate hike. That's right. A hike that's going up when the Reserve Bank Board next meets in August. How on earth did this happen when all the talk up until now is that the next move in rates would be down? Well, it is all because of inflation. And I need to say that term, Sean, that you've dropped a couple of times. Sticky services inflation, which I don't know about you, but that conjures up all kinds of erotic images, doesn't it?
Not really. No.
Tumbleweeds.
Yeah,
doesn't it? Adam? No?
No.
Anyway, look, and me either. But this week, we received the monthly inflation number for May, and the annual number jumped up to 4% from 3.6%, higher prices for electricity, rents, fruit and vegetables, holidays, all contributing. And suddenly, markets were pricing in a better than 1 in 3 chance of an August rate increase. Now, for anyone who wants to get a better understanding of why the Reserve Bank would be considering hiking rates when households are under so much pressure already, you only need to look at retailers to see that plenty of households have just stopped spending. Then you need to listen to Sean's interview with Warren Hogan from Judo Bank. It is, I think, the best explanation of why he expects the Reserve Bank will be forced to hike rates. And as Warren says, the most damaging thing in the economy right now is inflation. And yes, interest rates are a blunt instrument. And yes, a hike is going to hurt some people a heck of a lot more than others, particularly younger people, particularly families, perhaps those with mortgages, retailers who rely on those people spending money, whereas older Australians who perhaps own their own home, maybe living off their super or savings and have a decent buffer will be more insulated. So it's not fair and it is going to hurt. But as Warren says, it's a risk worth taking in order to get inflation back under control, because that's the thing that will give us longer-term prosperity. And everyone was a little bit unsure about it until Wednesday of this week. And that monthly inflation number was a brutal, harsh reality check. Of course, it'll take more than one number to sway the RBA. They'll really need that quarterly inflation too. And maybe markets overreacted a little through the week. But golly, it doesn't look good, does it? The biggest story of the week for the Australian economy, for Australian business, for Australian households. I am done. Me and Warren Hogan are done.
I reckon that you should probably stay away from the economy in the future, Michael.
I think I derailed myself with that sticky services inflation.
I think so. It's true. All I want to just say, so what about a bond market pricing in 1 in 3 chance or a bit less now of a rate hike in August, which means 2 in 3 not? Just pointing it out.
Point it out all you want, Sean. You can poke holes in my argument, but I'm confident that Adam will do the right thing.
But Michael, this is where you were so wrong. I was never going to do the economy.
Go on.
Why do you think I let you go first?
A cunning plan?
A cunning plan. Michael, it is the end of the financial year tomorrow. Markets closed yesterday. Therefore, by definition, this story is not just the biggest story of the week. It's a once-in-a-year story. And it affects not just people with home loans that you're talking about, but every single person with a superannuation fund or anyone that invests. Because the market closed for fiscal 2024 yesterday, and this week we found out what a cracker of a year the ASX 200 had, what a cracker of a year superannuation returns had. We're talking 9, 10%, which is much better than inflation. It's actually about the same as last year. The hot sectors over the last year in the market, technology stocks won all the plaudits, particularly anything to do with data centers and AI. Think Altium and Megaport, even though Goodman Group's a property company, you can throw that in as well because it operates data centers. Then we had the financials over the last year, CBA hitting a new record again this week. National Australia Bank overperforming, up there in the rankings, remarkably, given the interest rate environment. Consumer discretionary stocks, think JB Hi-Fi, Premier Investments. Now, just as an aside, just to add to this story, this week Myer offered to effectively merge with a bunch of Premier stores, JJ's, Justine's, Jackie E, Dotty, but that's just an aside. The worst performing sectors for the financial year, energy stocks, think Woodside, materials, think the big miners, that's all about commodity prices, oil and gas prices, and consumer staples. They didn't do so well. Think the big supermarkets. This is the week we found out about the winners and losers for the financial year, how our super funds performed, whether or not people like, Adam can retire soon, whether they can retire in 1 year, 10 years, or perhaps never. Massive, massive week.
I love how everyone's now using the word massive. I've infected you all with the use of the term massive.
Massive.
Adam,
Yes.
what do you reckon?
I loved, Michael, your second attempt at being the role of the economist. I thought it was excellent. So well played you.
Thank you.
It is, however, monthly inflation, not quarterly. And therefore, it doesn't carry the same weight in terms of the basket of goods that is measured on a quarterly basis. And so very, very concerning. But I think that's why we saw the Reserve Bank in somewhat muted tones in response, that the quarterly data is the really most important data.
But it's the trend, Adam. It's the trend.
The trend is your friend,
The trend
Michael.
is your friend, Adam.
And look, and fair cop too, it might be the optimist in me, right? It's just hoping that the quarterly number will be much better, because I am. But in terms of Sean's story on the fiscal year close, the ASX up, superannuation up, both scraping near to double-digit growth. That's an extraordinary year.
Ooh,
and as
yes.
Sean, as you pointed out, the different winners and losers, the whole landscape of the investment climate is just incredible. So, great. Biggest story of the week for me.
You two are carrying on as though the ASX functions throughout the entire year in a big closed box in which no one can see into it. And you have to wait until the end of the financial year to find out how all of the companies have performed and to find out how we've known what's happening on the ASX over the last 12 months. We see it and talk about it every day. How is it the biggest story of the week this week?
1-0.
Ever stoic, Michael.
1-0.
You know what? I accept the judge's decision, however wrong it is. Sean, would you like to go first on the most remarkable story?
Sure. Cash is not dead yet. But the fact I have to add yet is why what's happening in the cash economy That's why it's so remarkable. This week we found out that cash will continue to be delivered across the country after delivery group Armaguard did a deal with the big banks and retailers to keep spreading the cash for at least another year. Armaguard's promised to reorganise itself and create a profitable business. Good luck with that one. The deal came about after many months of negotiations. It includes extra funding of up to $50 million to Armaguard over the next year. The banks, the retailers, people like Bunnings, they're going to chip in to pay that. Now, the background to this, people don't use anywhere near as much cash. It's basically become uneconomical for Armaguard, which is now pretty much a monopoly transporter of cash, to keep delivering to different outlets. The Reserve Bank's been involved, been a really big story. So just the fact that we have this crisis about delivering cash is critical. Now, a few facts and figures from the Reserve Bank. The amount of cash circulating in the economy, you'd think would be falling a fair bit, but in fact, it's not. It's pretty steady. It's falling just only a bit. In fact, $100 bills are increasing. Every other bill is decreasing. But people are hoarding it. They're not spending it, like putting it under the bed or something or other. In-person cash transactions have gone from about 1/3 of the economy in 2019 to 16%. Isn't that incredible, Adam? 84%? Non-cash, yeah. It was nearly 70% in 2007. So it just shows that in that 14-year period, from 70% to 16%. The COVID pandemic, of course, supercharged the acceleration. Where the biggest falls have occurred in percent users is in pockets of people who traditionally have always used cash. So older people have stopped using cash. Those on lower incomes, people in the regions. In the past couple of years, the number of ATMs have declined by about 11% per year. So that ATM numbers have halved over the past 7 years. Just the fact that we are talking about the total demise of cash, and I suppose I'm using the deal with Armaguard, it needs help. It needs a $50 million injection so as to keep delivering cash. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any cash. Remarkable. Michael.
Yes, Sean. That is a good... Sorry, I was just here furiously taking notes. Not on what you were saying, but on what I'm about to say. Sorry,
changing on the fly.
Yeah,
I was. The thing is, you need to be agile on this show. You need to go, you know what? I was expecting a win in the first round. I need to recalibrate, need to adjust where I'm going.
Michael, is that agile like a cat?
Oh, yes. Oh, brilliant. I will get to the cat in a minute.
Very well.
I'm going to do my most remarkable while I've got a bit of passion built up here. Bit of steam. The most remarkable story of the week is about Julian Assange. Now,
who's he?
This is the thing, Sean. You talked about it a bit this week. I'm not going to go into whether he's a hero or not. Some see him as one for releasing hundreds of thousands of classified US military documents through his site WikiLeaks, exposing wrongdoing by the military. Others do not see him as a hero because of the unintended consequences of those releases, including putting people in danger because their names, for instance, hadn't been redacted. I'm not going to get into all of that, into the moral, the ethical side of it. What I'm putting forward as remarkable, though, is how quickly this long saga came to an end. Because at the beginning of this week, Julian Assange was in the UK's high-security Belmarsh prison, where he spent almost 5 years fighting extradition to the US. Prior to that, he'd been living in the Ecuadorian embassy for 7 years. So this saga has been going on for at least 12 years. And then all of a sudden, it was over. Just like that. There's been a whole lot of lobbying behind the scenes. All of a sudden, lo and behold, a deal is done with the US. Julian Assange walks out of Belmarsh onto a private jet, flies to a tiny island in the Western Pacific, a US territory, where he pleads guilty to one single criminal count relating to those US documents. Then it's back on the jet for a flight all the way home to Australia. And for that leg, he was escorted by none other than Australia's ambassador to the US, our former Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd. And his first call when he gets back here to Australia is to the current Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, to thank him for, quote, saving my life. That is all just remarkable, that he went from Belmarsh jailbird to a free man in Australia via a US courtroom on an island that's only 9 kilometres wide, about the same size in diameter as Adelaide, in about 72 hours with a former Prime Minister by his side. You put it all together and just the theatre, the drama of all of this and how quickly it all ended when at the start of the week we weren't even talking about this. And now everyone's been talking about it. It is the most remarkable story of the week, 12 years in the making.
You know, Michael, we don't transport convicts on ships anymore. You do know that. We use jet airlines.
Adam?
He says, pleading.
Just intervene.
So, Adam,
I'm feeling picked on today.
Before you give your verdict,
Yes.
what do you think of Julian Assange? Do you think he's hero or villain?
Oh, he's villain for me. And I know this is going to be a point of view that's different to many, is he made a choice to release confidential information and I think could have copped the consequences right up front, and they would have gone a lot more differently than they have, and it wouldn't have been the public spectacle.
You are such a media company CEO sometimes, Adam.
Well, the other part is, though, I think at the other end, just how quickly former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd got right alongside.
What a surprise.
Kevin and Julian together at last.
They kind of look a bit alike. If they both had their beards, I reckon they would look a bit alike.
Slight height differential. Just incredible. So I think that has to win for Remarkable Story of the Week. But your story, Sean, on cash is still remarkable. So I'm blown away. There is so much money that's just sitting, as you say, under mattresses and in people's pockets. And you wonder about the legitimacy of all of those saving spots.
Yeah, you do. No doubt.
So it's 1-1.
1-1.
1-1.
I can't even complain about that judgment, which is disappointing.
Oh,
I'm sure you will, though.
I will.
It's never stopped you before. Not being able to complain has never prevented a complaint. Quick mention, shall we? We need to address the elephant in the room.
The cat of the people, Michael?
The cat of the people, don't we? So the context to this is that we have a fantastic listener who contacted us through the week by the name of Travis from Western Australia. And long story short, there's only one of the three of us in this studio right now who now has a cat named after them.
And Michael, can you underline the reasons why that naming came about?
God.
So Travis just briefly said, he goes, I have 2 rescue cats with the male cat given the name Leo. This is in his email from the shelter, which kind of makes sense because he has a mane like a lion. His behavior, though, is nothing like a lion. Defining characteristics include, and this is the part I wanted to leave out, Adam. I didn't want to mention this part because it kind of
soils the story.
It's not hugely complimentary towards it. Anyway, look, the characteristics of this cat, the cat formerly known as Leo, he is self-preening.
Yep.
He displays significant outrage when his sister wins. He has a short memory, can bounce from a loss to a win in 10 seconds. He enjoys eating challenges, has been known to eat his sister's food and occasionally throw up. Because obviously I told that story last week about throwing up after eating challenges. And then Travis went on to say, I had been thinking Cartman was an appropriate name for my cat after the South Park character. But after last week's episode, it came to me that surely a better, although slightly odd name is Michael, Cat of the People. and he sought the blessing, the approval of the Fear and Greed team. And obviously I'm happy for anything to be named after me. Cats, bridges, buildings, countries, anything. I'm going to start with a cat. Michael, Cat of the People, I think is a fantastic name. I'm going to put a video of Michael, Cat of the People on our Instagram so that you can also enjoy just how awesome a cat this is. And I'm going to take it in the spirit in which it was meant, which is a huge compliment. Thank you, Travis.
Michael, Cat of the People, Travis, well done. I think your cat shows all the attributes that our Mickey T shows every single day. And I just want you to know it's going to be tough, Travis, living with that cat. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, every day will be a joy,
Trying.
Travis. All right, well, and head along to our Instagram, Fear and Greed Podcast, and I'll make sure I pop the video of Michael, Cat of the People up there. We will take a quick break. We'll come back and find a sleeper story in a moment. All right, Sean, we are looking for a sleeper story of the week. The sleeper story is one that's not getting the attention that we feel it deserves, or is going to become a bigger story further down the track, or as you did last week, you just gave your opinion on a story and said that, hey, maybe this would be fun if this happened, and somehow...
Don't hold on, Michael. Let it go. Let it go.
Somehow that won.
Think of Michael, cat of the people. Just changes in 10 seconds. This has been a week. You got to let it go.
Sleeper story. I've done something. I'm going first, by the way. I've done something very clever this week for the sleeper story.
Oh,
Great
really?
self-assessment.
Oh, yeah, nice start. Yes, we look forward to it.
I have read between the lines of some existing stories. I've looked into the crystal ball, and I am prepared to call it right now. Remote working, hybrid working on the way out. Companies have had enough, and it's about to get serious. How do I know? How do I know this? Because they are getting desperate, right? They have tried all kinds of things to lure people back. We know this. We've seen this in the past. We've seen, these are the stories that I've referenced. Free coffee, kind of free food. They've had yoga, end of trip facilities, all these things to lure people back to the office. They've reached the end of the line. They are now offering something that we thought we would never see again. Dedicated, allocated desks. That's right. We are witnessing right now the end of hot desking, which has been all the rage now for many years. And if companies like Salesforce, huge companies like Salesforce and others, are willing to give that up in order to get people back in, then they must be desperate, because businesses love hot desking. It reduces the number of desks. It's a very efficient way to operate on paper, all that kind of thing, but they are giving up on it, which shows just how desperate companies are to get people back when they are prepared to do away with hot desking. The next step is mandated, compulsory, full-time attendance. So mark my words, it is happening. You heard it here first. And if they gave out Gold Walkley Awards for best predictions and best sleeper stories, I'd be going home with the gong right now. And you know where I would be putting it? I'd be putting it on my desk in my remote workplace that I will never leave, because I'm a remote and hybrid worker for life, because at home, my desk is my own. Nobody touches my stuff. So long, hot desks. We all hated you. Sean, what have you got?
Mine's a bit more serious, and it's actually very, very relevant to everyone. It's kind of, is it the end of big tech as we know it? That's pretty big, actually. Probably not, right? Let's face it.
It feels like this has all the hallmarks of an overreach here, Sean.
Look, it's sort of like the foothills of the mountains that regulators need to climb to control the tech platforms. How about that? Beginning.
Walking back.
Beginning.
Like base camp?
It's more like Kathmandu before you hit base camp.
Okay.
Just like the outskirts of Kathmandu, probably.
Base camp. Okay.
So this week, European regulators charged Microsoft with breaking antitrust rules by bundling its Teams video conferencing and collaboration software with a suite of other productivity tools, according to the EU, giving it an unfair advantage over rivals. Now, I admit this is a tricky one when the judge is Adam.
Right.
As you know, Michael, listeners, you need to know, if you send something to Adam in Excel, a Microsoft program, it comes back to you in Google Sheets. A Word document. PowerPoint. It comes back in Docs, Google Docs or Google Slides.
Am I getting the feeling that this isn't your preferred state, Sean?
Google is very cumbersome, less intuitive. It's actually a pain in the ass. However, knowing Adam is a Google man and not a Teams man, doesn't like the Teams environment, I feel I'm on fairly safe ground here. Now, if I just got to swipe at you for always putting all my Excel into the Google environment, well, so be it. But I do know that you are a Google man, not a Teams man. Regulators said Microsoft's packaging of Teams with other well-established software tools, so the other Microsoft products, stuff like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, etc., amounts to an illegal abuse of market dominance that rival companies like Zoom and Slack can't match. Regulators said businesses essentially had little choice but to take on Teams. So that's European regulators taking on Microsoft in a big way. That was about Wednesday. On Monday, same regulators accused Apple of imposing unfair restrictions on developers for applications of its App Store in violation of new EU competition rules. Where this is really interesting is this is the first time that something called the Digital Markets Act of 2022 has been tested in Europe. There's also cases against Amazon, Google, Meta, TikTok, and X. The two lawsuits this week put the spotlight firmly on tech platforms, particularly Google, because this law is new. Every other jurisdiction, including Australia, is watching very closely what happens. The problem with the tech platforms is they're too big to regulate. No single jurisdiction, as we found here in the case of X, with videos put up earlier in the year, you can't rule them. So when you get the EU, which is a big group of countries coming together, taking on these tech platforms, everyone is watching to see what happens. And I think it's a great sleeper story because if they're successful, the tech platforms have to change the way they operate. So maybe we're beyond the outskirts of Kathmandu and kind of into the foothills heading towards base camp.
You've inched along, Sean.
Inched
well
along.
done.
I like that story more now that I actually told you than when I was thinking about it.
Yeah, well, do you remember too, it wasn't that long ago when phone charges all got standardised.
Yeah, that's the perfect example in
that
Europe.
changed my world.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
God, thank God for that.
Yeah, but so did hot desking. That also changed your world.
I could hear the slight personal bias creeping into Michael's story about hot desking. Hybrid working is on the way out. Hot desking is out. Maybe just a fraction early on that call, Michael.
No. compared to Sean's call that big tech is done for, like remember where he started? He started at Everest and worked his way backwards. So anyway,
I think
I sense where this is going, and I'm just going to put it on the record. I don't like it.
What I don't understand, and you pick a topic like hot desking, which you know Adam loves, and you go against it. I played the judge much better than you did.
Yeah, but see, I don't do that. I consider it unethical
to wait for the judgment.
Yeah. Go on.
We're still mostly, it seems to me, 3 days a week in an office. But each of one of us, right, and probably like many people listening to this podcast, will have more than one job or more than one client that they work with and have to engage with different systems. And it is a punish, the interoperability between Apple, Microsoft products. It's a punish when you have to drop from one environment to another and the computer gets confused, maybe even the operator too.
It's punish using Google Docs. I'm sorry, Adam. It just is.
I love Google Docs, Adam. I genuinely do.
Well, they have great function and are easily shared, but they're not as beautiful as Word, as Microsoft products.
Yeah.
Or as easy to use.
Who won?
Sean wins.
I'm loving this.
Today is I know I've used this term before, but today is total BS.
Even more total, a bigger total BS.
Yeah,
yes,
BBS.
Sean, you go first for your favourite story. So it's 2-1. This could still be
it could be
a glorious draw.
Timeliness. Keep that in mind. The average salary for an Olympic athlete is anyone?
Oh, good question. $78,000.
I'm going to go slightly less. 77,300. 77,300.
Cheats. What currency?
Oh, US dollars.
Yeah. Cheats.
Just as a random guess. If this is the Price is Right, you got to get the closest without going over.
Sharing my notes doesn't work. $77,300 a year. Average salary for an Olympic athlete. That's according to Indeed, which is the big job board. Now, I'm sure Usain Bolt made more, but the run-of-the-mill Olympian, the average everyday Olympian, if there is such a person, makes about 110,000 Aussie dollars. So when you're watching your favourite sport in Paris next month, or not at the Paris Olympics next month, keep that in mind. All the sweat and toil and hard work and sacrifice for not that much money. That's why my favourite story this week comes from US Olympic champion Michael Johnson, who unveiled a new competition to elevate elite athletes and athletics. It's called Grand Slam Track. Scheduled to start next year. There'll be 4 Grand Slams, one in LA, one in another US city, 2 outside the US. It'll be backed by about $30 million of commitments from investors, including hedge fund billionaire Bill Ackman. Winners in each event will win about $100,000. All top 8 place getters will earn something. Suddenly they're starting to get paid for what they do. Johnson says the competition is built for today's audience. Each athlete will compete twice at each slam event. Basically, you go to an athletics meeting and it's a 100-meter dash. You duck out of the toilet and you come back and you've just spent hundreds of dollars getting the seat, but you went to the loo in the 11 seconds that it took to run the event. And that's that. It's like, right.
Timing.
Okay, kids, let's move on. So they're going to run twice, which is twice as good, I suppose. Already some athletes Olympic athletes have said they'll join the group. Under the proposal, there'll be 48 paid races and 48 challenges. Now, World Athletics, the governing body for track, also recently announced a first-of-its-kind plan to award $50,000 to all of this year's Olympic gold medalists. So at least World Athletics is trying to make this financially viable for people. The federation will also start the Ultimate Championship in 2026. That'll bring the year's top performers together and award $150,000 in first prizes. Athletics is one of the biggest participation sports in the world. But like swimming and cycling, other huge participation sports, it has a huge fan base, but there are limited opportunities for people to attend. The Diamond League, which is actually the main athletics event globally outside the Olympics, that has just been dropped by US television, for example. So there's no money in the Diamond League anymore. So the fact that Michael Johnson, a man who I saw in 1996 at the US trials, break the world record for 200 metres in a pair of gold shoes, so I like him anyway, the fact that he is putting money into the sport for these people who work so hard, well, my favourite story of the week. Michael.
My favourite story this week is about the unsung hero of the Australian aviation sector, Rex Airlines. And you know why I think this humble domestic airline deserves a big pat on the back or on the tail fin or wherever you pat an aircraft? Because this week, they were the only Australian airline to rise in the prestigious Skytrax World Airline Awards. Higher than Virgin, higher than Jetstar. Both of those went backwards. So good on Rex, which really feels like, I don't know whether it feels like this to you, but it certainly does to me. It feels like Rex has grown up over the past few years, kind of moving into 737s. It's always just kind of flown the regional and rural routes. With kind of like your Dash 8s and things, and moving into 737s, into jets, and flying the Golden Triangle, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, rather than just those regional and rural destinations. It feels like Rex has really kind of come into its own. And these awards, which are described as, of course, the Oscars of the aviation sector, really do reflect that. And on the flip side, we've got the ongoing decline of Australia's national carrier, Qantas. For like, what was it, nearly a decade, more than a decade, it ranked consistently within or very close to the top 10. It is now ranked number 24. 24, down from 17 last year. Can you believe that? Can you believe how far Qantas has fallen? These awards are measured on comfort and food and entertainment, service, aircraft fleet, all the kinds of things that passengers really care about. So clearly, for Qantas, there is a lot of work to do. The pressure is on this company, and it's on CEO Vanessa Hudson to turn things around after an awful 18 months or so. She has committed $230 million in spending to improve the airline. And by the sounds of it, every cent of that is going to be needed. I don't want to focus on the negative, though. I'm not, by my very nature, I'm not a negative person. I want this to be a positive story about a little Australian airline punching above its weight, rising, soaring through the global rankings. Rex. Never mind that Garuda and Ethiopian and Azerbaijan Airlines are still ahead of you in the rankings. Just keep your eyes on the prize, taking top spot from Qatar Airways, which is entirely possible. Just very, very, very unlikely. But still, this is my favourite story of the week. Go Rex.
Sean wins this one for me. I think it's just incredible that these athletes train so hard and are so dedicated over years and years and years, and they get so few outlets to show their capabilities and compete. So I think this is wonderful. Brilliant. Great business move. It's one of those things you go, God, I probably should have thought of that. But it's really, really good.
Apart from the $30 million.
Yeah, sure. I haven't got that quite lying around at the moment, but I think it's a great idea. And I hope when we see things like Live Golf happen and the PGA get shaken up, this is another thing that can be for the benefit of athletes. So wonderful story.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We've seen something terrible happen here today. A travesty, a miscarriage of justice, the cat of the people and the man of the people have both been betrayed by you, Adam.
3-1.
Quick little plug to the Sunday feature interview tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
I am, because I decide what we do as the Sunday feature.
Reaching into the archive. What have you got for us, Michael?
We are featuring an interview with John Sharp, who is the chair of Rex.
Yes.
And this is from 2021. This is a fantastic interview.
Oh, doesn't he call it straight too?
Oh, yeah, he really does. And of course, Sean, when you spoke to him back in 2021, this was just when they were taking on Qantas on that golden triangle. And he just gave it to Qantas, calling Qantas a bully, all this kind of stuff. It's just, he just rips in. And maybe I should have mentioned this before Adam made his decision. And maybe just, it might have swayed it a little bit towards me. Anyway, what was the final point? So check out that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sunday feature on the Fear and Greed playlist. You'll hear that one. It's a ripper of an interview. What was the final scores?
Sean wins 3-1 on the story count. Points, 88 Michael, 90 Sean. High quality battle, very close.
Was it?
I think so.
Actually, I don't think this was like a prime week. In all honesty, I think Michael, his first story, I was good. Michael, his first story was about something that's not going to happen, about interest rates. His third story was about something that's not going to happen, remote working, dying. I don't even think you put an effort in this week, Michael. Maybe we should dock his pay or something.
I put effort into the melodrama,
You
Sean.
put effort into
effort
finding a cat that's named after you, but that's about it.
You do the facts, I do the colour. So
that's how it works.
yeah. Which is bad then when I'm presenting half of the facts in this in this particular episode. It does make you question kind of what I'm telling you. But I do believe I should have won. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sean.
And thank you and congratulations, Sean.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Adam. Another excellent effort this week, Adamski. Well done.
I thought you were congratulating yourself there.
Happy to do that.
Sean, another excellent effort there, Sean. Well done, you. Well done, Aylmer. All right, make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great weekend.